This cover-up spans decades, and you are responsible for this portion of it.
So why is nobody going to jail after almost 3.5 million documents related to the Epstein case have been released? I feel like this is the question that's on everybody's mind. So I decided to dig into it a bit, and what I found will shock you. The answer is multifaceted, all right? There's several different things at play here. The first and most glaringly obvious reason is because the raids that the FBI did in the first place when Epstein was first arrested in 2019 were essentially shams, okay? They were fake. They were all for show. No real evidence was collected, all right? And if you're a current subscriber of mine, if you watched a lot of my videos, you know I talk about this a lot, but to me, it's just mind-blowing, okay? The FBI waited 5 weeks to raid Epstein's island after his arrest, okay? When the FBI raids people, when they build a case against somebody, they raid all locations associated with this person all at the same time. Epstein had 5 residences throughout the U.S. Palm Beach, New York, Zorro Ranch in New Mexico, a house in Ohio, and his island, okay? They raided his New York residence the night of his arrest. And then they waited 5 weeks to raid his island, and they never raided his 3 other residences. Even though we can see in the Epstein Files, there are videos of girls being abused at Zorro Ranch. There's one where he's like ringing a bell, and this girl is like crawling to him. Okay, they're very disturbing. But the FBI did have evidence that crimes were committed at Zorro Ranch. So why was Zorro Ranch never raided? Okay, and Zorro is, there's a lot of things people talk about Zorro. There was potentially human cloning going on there. Epstein was trying to seed the human race with his genes. I don't know how much of that is true and how much of that is just sensationalism. I think a lot of that comes from victim testimony, but I digress, okay? His island wasn't raided for 5 weeks after his arrest. We can see in drone footage over Epstein's island, I'll throw that up for you guys right now if you want to look at that. We can see that throughout his island, there's construction projects that go on. There's remodeling that's going on. They get deliveries of overseas containers during that time. Okay, so a lot of activity happens on this island. They have plenty of time to get rid of evidence, plenty of time to cherry pick exactly what they want the FBI to find. The only other raid that took place on Epstein's property was his New York residence, okay? And at the time that this raid happened, it was widely reported, not talked about a whole lot since, but it was reported at the time that the police did not have a proper seizure warrant. They only had a search warrant. They couldn't take any of the evidence that they found. So they went in, took pictures of stuff, and then left. And when they came back a few days later, all this stuff was gone, including a very infamous picture of hard drives that had evidence tape around them. Evidence tape that Epstein applied, not the police. So that tells us right there that these hard drives very likely had incriminating, probably blackmail material on people. That's why he put the anti-tamper or evidence tape around them, okay? The FBI purposefully didn't take that evidence. They didn't want to collect it because then they would have to prosecute the people that were on those hard drives, the people who were implicated in those videos that were likely on that hard drive. To further drive this point home, here is a document that another YouTuber found in the Epstein Files, the EFTA numbers up here. This YouTuber was Dr. G Explains. Shout out to Dr. G for this one because it is amazing. This is an FBI document where 2 special agents amend the inventory that they collected after the raid on Epstein's New York residence, okay? What these were 2 suitcases, a black suitcase and a blue suitcase, okay? And these are essentially what you might call a bug-out bag or their getaway money. If you've ever seen American Gangster, Frank Lucas had getaway money in his house.
The getaway money that Frank and every other gangster keeps in his house.
That's what these were. You can see these were boxes that had diamonds, jewelry, U.S. currency. That probably, just looking at the contents of this, which you're welcome to check this out, there is, here we have $6,000 in U.S. currency, 48 loose diamonds, jewelry box, stacks of diamond certificates, a Richard Mell watch, which could be in the millions of dollars or $500,000, U.S. Department of Treasury customs badge, fake expired passports, an AT&T corporate card from Wexner Investment Company, Les Wexner, a known Epstein associate and co-conspirator, Here we have another box of jewelry. An FP Jorn watch. I mean, we can just keep going through this. You know, stacks of $10,000 totaling $50,000 in U.S. currency. What this was, and I'm not going to keep going through it, but there's millions of dollars of inventory in these suitcases, okay? These would be, if he thinks that something's going down, if he thinks he's about to be arrested or the walls are closing in on him, he can just grab these briefcases and go. He can disappear and he can live for years on the contents of these suitcases, okay? Notably in here, there are binders of CDs. Okay, that's what the FBI documented as being in this suitcase. Very likely on these CDs there would be incriminating blackmail material, probably on people like, just guessing here, Bill Gates, Bill Clinton, Les Wexner, these really, really powerful men. He probably took that blackmail material, put them on CDs, and put them in his gangster getaway bags. All right, this document right here is saying Special Agent Blank handwritten inventory that was completed on July 11th, 2019 indicated a book of CDs located at the bottom of the inventory page for the blue suitcase. Upon review of the suitcase's contents and discussion with Special Agent Blank, it was determined that the aforementioned item was made in error and was not located in either suitcase. Special Agent Blank advised the writer that it was possible during the initial inventory of the suitcases, she duplicated the entry as items were being called out by inspecting agents. So just how absolutely convenient is that, okay? In Epstein's gangster getaway bags, he had CDs of very likely blackmail material on very prominent, important people that the FBI just misplaced.
Stole that shit. That's what I do.
Yep, they just misplaced it. The one thing in there, they didn't misplace the $50,000 in cash. They didn't misplace the $1 million watches that he had. No, they misplaced 2 binders of CDs, okay? And if you say, well, this could just be an honest mistake, maybe this legitimately did happen. This is what these people do for a living. These are FBI agents. All day long, they go out and they raid people and they inventory what they find and they build. These are professionals, okay? These are professionals. So to me, this seems very, very suspicious, all right? And it's yet another example of the FBI purposefully not collecting evidence on Epstein, purposefully not cataloging it and making sure that they don't have to prosecute the individuals who they would find on these CDs. Very suspicious. The FBI also did an abysmal job of organizing the evidence that they very reluctantly had to find. All right, what do I mean by this? Here's an email I dug up. It seems to be somebody high up in the Justice Department or the FBI, and then they threw a bunch of other high-level people on here, and they're trying to make sense of all of the information that they have on the Epstein case, okay? Here in this email here, she's talking about she got a hard drive, but there's old material on it, and she's talking about how they don't have a identification or labeling system. They're just getting so much information in on this case, and there's no way for them to keep track of it here. Here's a very good synopsis of the situation they have with this whole Epstein case and trying to organize everything. I'm going to read this to you. Basically, the way to think about it is this. Imagine if we had seized papers from approximately 100,000 filing cabinets in a dozen different office buildings, and then instead of keeping them organized or labeled by room or even by office building, all 1.3 million documents so far just got dumped into one big pile. Except before that, any document that had multiple parts stapled together got separated, and then if any of those documents were larger than about 100 pages, couldn't be opened. That's what we've got, just electronically. Guys, this is very likely by design, okay? This level of incompetence from the FBI.
My name is Jeff.
All right, this isn't like me or you trying to investigate this, okay? This is what the FBI does. It's their only job. They are the Federal Bureau of Investigation. They were created, the whole purpose of the FBI, when J. Edgar Hoover, first came about and was heading the FBI, the whole purpose was you had these criminals who operated through state lines. So certain states, they would have evidence of crimes that Bonnie and Clyde did here, and then Bonnie and Clyde would go to another state, and you had all these different law enforcement agencies working independently. The federal government said, we've got really big time criminals here now, and we need a broad federal agency that can manage all facets of these investigations. Okay, this is what they do.
That's what I do, man.
And this is what they've done for almost 100 years now. All right. And now all of a sudden, here it comes Jeffrey Epstein, and they forget how to do proper raids, and they forget how to catalog evidence. They all of a sudden don't know how to put evidence in their system. They just throw everything in there. It's basically what that document was telling you. All the Epstein files that they have were just thrown into a pile with no rhyme or reason. This would make it very, very challenging for any FBI agent who would want to investigate co-conspirators of Epstein to navigate through this giant mess of a filing system that they've created. Guys, another huge problem is the over-redactions, okay? And these files aren't just redacted to the public. Here's Congressman Khanna and Thomas Massie talking about when they went to view these files, a lot of them were redacted even for them.
Our bigger concern is that there's still a lot that's redacted. Even in what we're seeing redacted versions. I thought we were supposed to see the unredacted versions, and that's because the documents produced to justice from the FBI, from the grand jury, was redacted when they got it. So we kept doing the searches for the unredacted information. It's the identical redactions.
And I just want to point out to everyone that these members of Congress, these are our voice. The Congress is elected by the people. Do you know that the president's not elected by the people? No, that's not how we do it. The people elect electors, right? The Electoral College. And the electors elect the president. Right? What we have right now, and I don't really want to get off into this too much, but what we have is a bastardized system of what the Founding Fathers intended. The Founding Fathers intended for us to be voting for prominent members in our community. And then those prominent members in our community, people that you trust and you like or whatever, they would go and vote for the president, okay? Because the Founding Fathers didn't trust the American people. They didn't trust the common folk or the so-called plebs to be making decisions on who the president was supposed to be. But the compromise for that was that Congress, the Senate, and the House of Representatives would be elected by the people. And this is how it is in parliamentary countries as well, where you have a parliament and a prime minister. The people don't elect the prime minister in these countries. They elect members of parliament, and parliament elects the president. Okay, so it's like this almost everywhere. Governments don't trust the people to elect the leader. Very interesting on that. But my whole point is these two members of Congress are our voice. Congressmen are our voice in the government. And they are not being shown the unredacted Epstein files. This is just absolute insanity. But even with that being the case, Thomas Massie and Khanna did identify 6 men in the unredacted Epstein files that they saw who are legitimately co-conspirators of Jeffrey Epstein and who should be prosecuted. Khanna just a few days ago spoke these names on the Senate floor, and I will play that for you guys right now.
These men are Salvatore Navora, Zorab Mikoladze, Leopig Leonor, Nicola Caputa, Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem, CEO of Dubai Ports World, and billionaire businessman Les Wexner, who was labeled as a co-conspirator by the FBI. Now, my question is, why did it take Thomas Massie and me going to the Justice Department to get these 6 men's identities to become public? And if we found 6 men that they were hiding in 2 hours, imagine how many men they are covering up for in those 3 million files. But the story gets worse. The reality is that Donald Trump's FBI scrubbed these files in March, long before Thomas Massie and I passed the Epstein Transparency Act.
Thank you, Mr.
Now, it should be pointed out, it's very interesting that all of these co-conspirators are foreigners, right? They're not Americans, besides Leslie Wexner. But everyone pretty much knows that Leslie Wexner was essentially bankrolling Epstein. There's even some evidence, some of the victims have come out and said that Epstein actually made his money because he let Leslie Wexner have sex with him.
You did develop a sexual relationship with Leslie Wexner at some point in time. Is that true?
No.
Okay.
So imagine that, like Epstein's at the top of this, sex pyramid that he has with all these underage girls, and then he himself is like a sex victim of Leslie Wexner. Kind of interesting accusation there. But something else I find very interesting, one of the other co-conspirators that they list, Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem or whoever, in the Epstein Files, we can see Epstein making fun of him with his doctor, Harry Fish. In this text message exchange between Epstein and Harry Fish, we can see Epstein tell Fish that the Sultan wants to replace his bionic dick with a new Swiss version. He wants a different surgeon. To which Harry Fish, who is, by the way, Jewish, replied, "You're joking, I hope." Epstein said, "Nope. Goyim." That's absolutely hilarious there, that Epstein and this other Jewish guy are making fun of the Sultan and calling him a Goyim because he wants another bionic dick replacement surgery. That's it for today, guys. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe. We'll see you on the next one.